Jordan's remarkable novel find its way to you, and what compelled you to turn it into a story? I think you read the script before the book.
Yeah, absolutely. So the script first came to me in 2015. It's written by co-writer Virgil Williams, and so Cassie Always was the producer who brought it to me. He's like, read this, and like I hate everything I read, but I love this, and that made me want to go back and read the book and see what else was there. And what I liked in Hillary's writing was the internal monologues. Like I thought the things the characters were saying to themselves were, kind of more interesting to explore, even than just the dialogue alone. And I wanted to tell the story like multiple points of view, and like I really wanted to make this a story of two families and create this dark symbiosis between the Jacksons and the McCallans. So neither is there just to serve the other, and so that's what inspired me to want to jump in and like tell the story.
Wow. Your first film, Pariah, felt so deeply personal, but I mean this one feels very on a personal level as well.
In some ways, yeah. So, like with this film, it really encouraged me to kind of like interrogate my own personal history. And so, my grandmother is from a town called Faraday, Louisiana. She was born in 1925, and her whole, idea was that she wasn't going to pick cotton, she wasn't going to chop cotton, she wanted to be a stenographer. And so, then that's why the little girl in the film wants to be a stenographer. And my grandmother would tell me stories about how she and her little brother would like ride on her mother's cotton sack, but how that wasn't going to be her. And so, when the war came, it actually opened up job opportunities. And so she actually ended up moving to California and became a key punch operator. And then in the 50s, she expatriated to Liberia. And so my grandmother is the one, who really, instilled in me this idea of travel, this idea of elsewhere. Like there's an elsewhere, you can go there. Like you don't have to stay. And so I wanted to kind of like mine that and put that in here. So.
This movie has an amazing ensemble. I mean, everyone from Jonathan Banks to Jason Mitchell to the two actors we have here today. Can you talk about assembling that chemistry? And for the actors, how did the role find its way to you, and what about the story spoke to you?
So for the casting, yeah, I'm just always interested in like the faces and like the relationships, and I'm just looking for actors who can just inhabit a character and like let themselves fall away. So I'll start with Garrett because he's like gorgeous and blinking at me. So for Jamie's character, I imagine him as going from I imagine his arc as being from dreamer to ghost, so like both like disconnected states. I needed an actor who had this like soulfulness and this kind of haunted quality he could bring. And actually I love Garrett. Ironically, I loved him in Inside Llewyn Davis, where he's like silent the whole film. And he says like this one line, it's like poetic. I was like, that guy, him, he's gotta be it. And so thankfully said yes. And then Jason Clarke, who plays his brother, for Henry, I needed like a swaggering, salt of the earth kind of guy. And Jason Clarke's got that swagger, and he really works very physically. Like we talked about whiteness as currency, and Jason really inhabited that. And so he's always like got his hand in his pocket, and he's jingling it, and he's limping, and he's great. And then for Carey Mulligan, who plays Laura, I needed almost an actress who could be two women. So she goes from like Laura of the mind, upright, Memphis civility, to like, rounded, slumping Mississippi farm wife chewing calluses off her hands, and knew that Carey could do that. And then for her counterpart, Florence, I imagined Florence as someone who had this exterior reserve, but this deep inner vulnerability and like empathy. Like Florence is an observer. She sees everything, but says like this much of what she sees. I knew that Mary could bring that inner empathy and vulnerability and that outer reserve to Florence. And if you've ever been to one of her concerts, it's like a therapy session, 30,000 people. Like people are crying and screaming. Like Mary isn't just like singing lines. She's like reliving things for you. She's living the love. She's living the pain, and you're really feeling it. And I knew that Mary could make us really feel. And then I'd seen her in The Wiz as like Eveline, which is like my favorite like show as a kid. And so then to see it redone, I was like, okay, she's Eveline. She could be anybody. And then her husband, so is played by Rob Morgan, who plays Hap. And Rob is an actor, so Rob was in Pariah. He plays a guy in the liquor store who's like talking trash. Yeah, he's the hater. He's the hater in the liquor store. But I've been trying to work with Rob forever, like since. Like I've been trying to do like insurance commercials with this dude, like anything. So I was like, just come do it. But like Rob's amazing. I knew I love like the quality of his voice, and Hap had to feel like he came from the earth. He had to have like a gravelly feel. He had to feel like wiry and strong and just like capable. And Hap is relentless. He never stops. And then for Pappy, Jonathan Banks from Breaking Bad, just because I love Breaking Bad, so yeah.
Did any of these actors in these main roles audition, or did you just know who you wanted?
No, these people don't need to audition. Like they just need, just know they have it. So I'm just glad they said yes. Like I knew Shaquem, who's Mary's manager, because he manages Queen Latifah, so I knew him from Bessie, and I was like, is there any way you think Mary would maybe think about it? And I remember we went to CAA, and I just had like a picture of you. I was like, can we get married? And they were like, yeah. I was like, okay, let's go for it. And so I'm just glad she said yes. I'm glad Garrett said yes. And all these guys, like, this was not a sure shot on paper, so they took a risk, and they all had bigger jobs and bigger things happening. So thank God they just all said yes and took time to come muck around with us, you know, in Louisiana for 28 days.
Actually acted quite a bit, but a movie like this and a role this size, I mean, were you intimidated?
Definitely. I was absolutely intimidated, but I was at a point in my life where I knew I had to make change, and it was something I had to push past the fear, or let the fear be like the wind on my back or something, because I needed to do something else. I really did. And by the grace of God, Dee Reese offered me this role, and it just challenged me, you know, when I saw how big the role was, it just challenged me to just go hard and really, really go after it. But I had so much of it already in me, you know. I had the woman, the silent woman from from Marriage, you know, the woman that says a lot, that doesn't say much, you know, but she knows a lot. I already had that. And I already had the Southern woman, because my mom and my dad are both from Savannah, Georgia, and they sent my sister and I down south every summer. And so I saw my grandmother. Florence was my grandmother. My grandmother had her own farm. She had her own chickens, cows. I saw them kill chickens, the whole thing. So that was all in me. I was already a fan of Dee. You know, I saw Pariah and Bessie, and I was a huge fan. I was in from day one. And when I read the script, I was just blown away at how beautiful and the message was, because of so many pieces of light in all this darkness, but just how relative it is today and where we live. And it just, I said, as Mary J. Blige and what I've always stood for, I had to be a part of something that would provoke change, you know, that would make us see ourselves and have conversations about how far we have not even come.
I'm realizing I left out Jason Mitchell, but Jason Mitchell, I love from Straight Outta Compton. He played Eugene. Yeah. He's amazing. And like, I wanted Jason because it was the scene where he's in the hospital and he's dying, and he's like hugging, you know, this other man. Just that he got that friendship and that male love and just like the vulnerability. And when he's in the booth and he's like, he's not supposed to be in there rapping, but he's doing it anyway. Like Jason Mitchell has that, just that kind of like that bravery, and even though he's like a young guy, he has this like wisdom. He has this like wise kind of look about him. And so Jason Mitchell was amazing and really, really went there for me. So yeah.
And Garrett, was it similar for you when you read the script, or was it a combination? I don't know if it's always the script that draws you in, or the people you know you'll be working with. I mean, maybe you knew, Mary J. Blige was involved with the project.
Well, I found out. I mean, it's weird because now I realize that I've been doing this for about 14 years, and sometimes when you just go by the script, it can bite you once in a while, because it turns out being the producers in the studio that's editing the film. And so I've been much more director-oriented recently, and just because, like, look, the same trust that goes in, we've got to give it out, because when somebody instills the trust within just calling up 7 or 8 people and being like, you're the one I want, you're the one I want, you're the one I want, and instilling that trust, and then we show up and there's minimal to no rehearsals, and you show up on set, and we did this in 28 days, and that goes on Dee for the trust that somebody has in the cast that she compiles, and that's really wonderful. When I read this script at the end of 2015, and I didn't know how it was progressing. I didn't know if it was gonna get made, and eventually I got on like Skype. And there's also like a hands up to Dee, because when we Skyped, I was 30 pounds heavier with like facial hair and the hair going down to here. I was doing this thing in Salt Lake with Soderbergh, and we talked for about 20 minutes, and I said,